You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
And welcome to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, broadcasting out of Johannesburg, east of Johannesburg, Thursday the 19th of October. In studio with me is the wonderful Master Diane, who's given us so much beauty to work with over the last few months. And let's do the South African greeting. How's it, Diane?
How's it, Paul? I was actually thinking for all our listeners out there to do the ululating. I don't know if they know what that is, but I'm just going to do it now and then we'll talk about it. That is ululating, and that's saying, hi, wonderful, Ubuntu.
I'm sure everybody in the Southern Hemisphere knows that. And Northern Hemisphere, welcome to the African show and the African part of the family as we broadcast live and just share what we have going on tonight. And first of all, just before we really introduce the show, let's just bring the theme in. We've got a short audio by Almin here called The Battle of Illusion. And let's listen to that. And then, Diane, we'll continue.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Let me tell you how the battle is that you're fighting, which is the battle against illusion, which is why it takes strength and courage and ruthlessness with oneself, because the illusions are handed down from generation to generation. If we don't focus on ourself, which is the only thing we have been given complete jurisdiction over, even our kids, they just come and go through our life. We're like their caretakers. We have been given our life to do with as we will. We have custody over our life. If we focus on our life, everything forever and ever and ever gets better. We all have contracts with each other. We have a contract with our kid. We have a contract with our husband. Sometimes people come in and they're afraid that if they go into God consciousness, that their marriage will break up, their kids will leave. But if you are living your highest truth, everybody will benefit. It is when we're too afraid to be all that we can be that we don't.
And Sarah La Rosa from the website herstrangeangels.com writes that there is that painful shift in awareness. You sit lumpy and listless in a seat you've outgrown. You see before you the new territory, the place you reach for, that you long to walk toward. And there is the space between, the disequilibrium of stars busy forming new life, burning out and dying, darkening before it can become a new self, a new incarnation. It is so very important to allow the blank spaces between lines, the time between time, the breaths before the beginning. Though we may move, we can soften our gaze to let what must pass, pass. We can avoid grasping at what is dissolving and understand that in that going away is both the liberation of new movements and the right to dance them, more the imperative to do that. The creative expression of the divine rests in a perpetual motion, a constant birthing and deathing process. Nothing stays the same, it cannot. This is flux. This is the dynamic of life, the rush of waters, the beating of wings, and the journey work of restless stars. And then earlier this week, Malie Wittis-Rose wrote some beautiful, and just the first paragraph of what she wrote, she says that while there is a part of us that very genuinely wishes to heal, to awaken and transform conditioned ways of seeing, there is often a lesser known part that has an unconscious investment in maintaining things the way they are. We wonder why, after years and even decades of working on ourselves, meditating, of praying, surrendering, doing yoga, etc., and going to therapy, it can seem like nothing is changing. And I think that really explains where we're going with tonight's program. It's entitled The Sacred Ceremony of Clearing Illusion, and Diane has produced a beautiful audio which we'll be working with in a short while and listening to some of Almin's music as we go with it. Diane, you created the audios for us on a week-to-week basis absolutely beautifully, the way that you even did that. Really just talking about and teaching us, your perspectives and insights around these principles of hope as Almin, has given us.
Yes.
Why did that start?
Sure, Paul, I hadn't actually thought about the why.
Not that it's important,
No.
really. I mean, we just do what is in front of us.
I
but-
suppose the field of hope has always drawn me. It's almost like a tangible field.
Okay.
If you think of the integrated oneness that it speaks of, and possibly almost instinctively, I'm inclined to be optimistic sometimes. So I think I was really drawn instinctively to that. And I love the idea of these tools. But the more I worked with the tools, the more I realized that the silence that it engendered is really the treasure.
So did you feel the higher potential of these principles or fields of hope
Yes.
was the silence?
Yes.
Which is what you were saying, the space between space, the time between time, what we were
Yes.
talking about earlier.
I love that quote about the space, because everything passes, the clouds, the tornadoes, the whatever, changing, morphing, transforming, but the space stays the same. And reading those quotes as well, I was thinking of the ocean and how the waves, rise and they are tumultuous and they give off foam and then they disappear
Always
again.
there, but always different as well.
And
nothing
always
ever was-
water.
Yeah. It is what it is, but yet it never is either.
Yes. And is that the
absolutely
paradox?
paradox?
Yes.
And I've been feeling that, because some of the shifts and changes, and we've got all these huge stories in our place,
Yes.
all of us, going on, and we just have to work through them and choose to do what we need to do. But I was feeling is that the only thing left for me at one point in terms of the onslaught of processes that was having, what was going on, and the processing that had to go on was hope.
Yes.
And it's one of the, multiple mantras that I use from Almin's teachings at a day-to-day level. And one of those highest things was hope. And you're always understanding there's always hope. And
Yes.
as long as we've got that, I think we've got the ability to step into newness. If that's,
Yes.
I'm not sure that's the correct word I want to describe it. It felt like that to me.
Yeah, sometimes we slip back into the disillusionment and the greyness and that area. And hope is not, I don't think, an obsessive desire to have A, B, and C. But I think it simply illuminates. It illuminates what is. It illuminates the field in a kind of neutrality. So you're not making judgment. You're not having to work hard and sweat of the brow.
Right.
So it's not hope as we have often believed it to be. That's how I perceive it.
There's so many principles and fields of hope, as you were saying. I mean, last week we finished on the principle of hope number 17.
Yes.
And then tonight you've brought the ceremony for us
Yes,
to bring it all
yes.
together. And each week it was just like absolutely amazing what was going on, because for technical reasons we may not have been able to play it on the show.
Yes.
We got what we call the frequency freeze, or the internet wasn't working and we couldn't do the full show. And there were times that we couldn't play that particular audio. And then next week we were able to play it. Absolutely perfect, in sync.
Yes.
I didn't even have to listen to them, and it was like, okay, that field of hope wasn't available that week, forget it. You didn't
Yes.
need it, but now this week,
Yes.
there it is for us.
But I just want to mention something to our listeners, and Paul has been the one stable sort of factor here. But I remember, a year ago coming to the studio and having prepared for hours. I was so afraid that something would go awry and I wouldn't have anything to say. So somehow that has all changed. So I've learned trust and surrender.
That's part of where we go, because I found within hope there is this need to learn what trust is. There's the need to learn what faith is.
Yes.
And there's a graciousness about learning that. That's been my experience.
And Paulie, you've talked about experience. That's what it is. It is experiential.
Yeah.
We have experienced it within our field. So it's not anything that we had to look up or Google or master. It's something we have experienced.
We were saying pre-show, that we've actually moved completely beyond the technical process of trying to find an understanding of it. We're starting to live in more fullness of these expressions of being, which are expressions of the infinite.
Yeah, Paul, I've picked that up over the last while. When I say picked it up, I don't mean it loosely, but the light has illuminated that for me as well.
Really incredible, the whole process along the way. And then, just to share with our listeners as well, part of the theme, I just dropped my headphones. I'll pick them up. Nico's looking at me, everybody like, how could I do that? But it has happened, and I hope it'll be okay. Okay, thank you, Diane. There was hope. There was hope for those microphones or headphones. The theme of the show every week really just comes up from our Light family and from what Almeen is bringing through in terms of everybody discovering and experiencing all of these aspects. And I found something very interesting this week, really where there's obviously trouble brewing in the US again because, we've had tornadoes.
Yes.
Here we've had tornadoes. 2 weeks ago we were sitting here in our town on the edge of this tornado and there was just havoc wreaked everywhere. And then the UK and Ireland got hit with a hurricane, the first in 50 years.
Yes.
And, we have all these natural disasters like in California and the fires. It's just incredible what is going on. And Almeen sometimes gives reasons for them and whatever. And I know 2 weeks ago she said something like, nature, the beauty of nature then is revered. However, when it turns against you, it's the subconscious aspects of mankind that is actually coming up. And you can see that link that is going on there. Now, there's another bit of information up on Almeen Diary about the Yellowstone National Park, which we know is a simmering volcano.
Yes, literally.
And then the question to her, scientists say that Yellowstone's world-ending supervolcano could erupt much sooner than we thought. Please comment. And then there's just an expression about the scientists are saying it may wipe life off Earth in a matter of decades. That's what the scientific and communities and National Geographic reports. And Almeen saves the day. She says, yes, it's like a time bomb, but what it's related to is the possibility of the infinite wiping out the human race. The destructive madness is threatening the planet and the animal kingdom. The irony that no one realizes that if you wipe out the animal kingdom, then you also wipe out man, because there's a genetic connection which is explained during the upcoming Moscow retreat. But if you wipe out man, you don't wipe out the animal kingdom. Of course, the question on your minds would naturally be, what about the original ones? We have been preparing diligently to unhook from the human matrix, something that was addressed quite a bit during the last Ohio retreat. But if original ones live their God principles, they will flourish and reclaim their original home, which is Earth.
Yes.
And really beautiful. And then there's a second aspect that Almeen goes into it, and it says, would it be merciless for the infinite to wipe out the human race? And I'm just trying to get my head around, why would the infinite consider that?
Yes.
Because we also are connected on all these levels. So the infinite is also an expression of us, and as the microcosm, we have to be an expression of the same,
Yes.
And she puts that into absolute clarity here. She says, you cannot pull those up that don't want to, that only pull you down.
Yes.
And earlier I was just talking to you about some of the processes of people around us. You cannot any longer rise to the occasion of their own potential and are no longer with us here. They've just left. The last few days, it's just been this incredible, like, people are leaving, but new ones are coming in. And we're watching all of those processes going on. And it's just incredible is that Nico and I no longer want to pull people up by the bootstrap. I mean, he had a student this week who came into class, hadn't prepared anything, and we're talking like a really dynamic masterclass student here. It has to be prepared. That's the agreement and work. And, okay, you allow that condition because we all go through stuff. And then Nico just said, get out of my class. And she's very upset now because she'd been rejected. And he just said to her, if you cannot pull yourself up and do what you need to do, you're never going to make it anyway. So rather don't do this, because you're just wasting your time and my time. Let's just be honest and open about it. And he's very true. He's very accurate about that.
Well, what a gift is that. And I mean, what mercy is that? You know, it's not merciless,
No,
although it
not
might
at all.
appear that
Yeah.
way. However, what a gift for her.
Well, she came back to do her exam, was absolute star in it all. So something was needed in
Wow,
that.
absolutely.
And that's exactly it, because the question given to Amin says, this perspective seems so without mercy to me. I suppose our perspective of what mercy is. I mean,
Yes.
he's doing someone a favor, but also not going to waste his time. And Almin answers that mercy is the way that man defines it, is listed in the dictionary as, I like that, but kind or forgiving treatment of someone who could be treated harshly, kindness or help given to people who are in a very bad or desperate situation, a good or lucky fact or situation. I find that aspect of mercy very egoic. It's like you're the savior and you help
Yes,
somebody.
you rush in and rescue.
That's it, you know, I find that. And then she goes into to say this, and it's mind-boggling for me. The cruelty of man against animals, especially and people, especially those who cannot defend themselves, and the earth herself is like a virus spreading throughout the cosmos. I've always said that humanity, being the root race, are archetypes for all other cosmic races. What they do affects all. Mercy, in the way that man applies it, often means that you have prevented another from learning the hard way, something that in future could call on in an even harder way. The most merciful thing you can do is to maintain an eternal perspective, which then others would seem merciless to one if they've got a contracted vision, and live your highest truth. If the great light this sheds can uplift man, then it is merciful. If not, then at least there's one that will gladly use the opportunities that you gift, which is the earth. To elevate her beyond the possibility of man destroying her is also merciful. Isn't that incredible? Just that. And
No,
we're
it's-
at, you know, it makes me feel hopeful. I mean, we're back to this
field of hope. Well, I mean, I realize sometimes that, you know, looking at situations from a greater perspective can often be perceived as you being indifferent.
Yeah.
You see, often neutrality appears that way. And you can't convince anybody that, you know, you really want to, this is your truth.
That's it, yeah.
Because that's not how it appears to
No, not
someone
at all.
in contracted vision. I know for myself, when I'm, you know, specifically in a contracted perspective, when it's all psychological and I'm
In
thinking
an
and,
emotional turmoil or whatever, yes, absolutely.
you do not see things
Yeah,
clearly. Everything is about, you know, you and how you feel, and
That's exactly what our experience has been. People
Yes.
around us who have now left our space and rapidly leaving it. It's just amazing it's like you're thinking, hang on a second, perhaps you shouldn't be in my space,
Yes.
and boom. It's like it's manifested.
Tested.
So that's a gift.
Well, how it is a gift, and how exhausting to continually, you know, pulling people up by their bootstraps. I mean, that is the energy that is.
You know, I had a space, again, I had a very interesting experience because of all the folders and files and audios and videos that we work with people around us. I actually took a quarter of my drive off when one of these people left. It had opened up a quarter of the space on my
grief.
hard drive. And I sat there in absolute amazement at how somebody had taken up my time and space
To that extent.
to that extent. And that was a big lesson for me.
Yes.
So mercy be, you know, to learn all of that. And again, gratitude just for that experience and knowing that, okay, we've cleared it away now. And,
Yes, and let it be.
and let it be what it is, 100%.
Can go and find its own space somewhere else.
That's what we
if
feel
necessary.
with it all. And
Yeah.
I think that's so masterful because I feel the old pull sometimes. I feel that old way of trying to discuss it. It's not okay. You know, let's do this, let's do that, let's fix this. But I just don't bite into it any longer.
Yeah, we often slip back into those old habits, don't we?
Very, very much so, indeed. So, Jack, thanks very much for your message that you're giving to us. You're saying that it's interesting that the Great Flood is commemorated this following the week, you know, within the Jewish faith. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And of course, you know, we've had huge floods and everything. I mean, what happened on our East Coast was
Yes,
unbelievable.
unbelievable.
But why have they still got a drought? I mean, those cars were submerged in tornado, hurricane-like storms. Why is there still a drought in that area? Where's all that water flowing to? Even not into any place where they can save it and use it. It's going straight out to sea again.
Those precious resources.
Resources.
And Jack, maybe you can sort of contact us and sort of give us your perspective from a global perspective of that flood, of that crossing of the Red Sea, and
the parting of the waves,
yes.
And I think, excuse me, I think he's highlighted perfectly where we're at as we're in the parting of the waves now. And the old is crashing behind us, but it's that hope and that faith that is just
that is allowing
beautiful
us
story.
to pursue it, absolutely.
Whether it's myth or story or legend or whatever, but there it is in
Yes.
our programming somewhere. So thanks, Jack, for sharing that along the way. Another interesting aspect that Almeen brought up with Annie today regarding the tablets of fire, which is coming up in the Moscow retreat. And she's doing live stream events into Moscow for the participants there. Wonderful to go. Send me a free ticket, but there we go. And I've been sitting with this tablets of fire. Fascinating that we could, as the original ones, we've written this in the future, and now we are unfolding it so we can step back into the future. How it is saving us and enhancing us and lifting up us in a higher way. I cannot wait for all of that to come in. But in the meantime, I suppose we've got to work with that. And then we've got an audio that came up on Almeen Diary today, and we're going to play it. Please understand, everyone, this was hand recorded by us just because we couldn't download it properly.
Yes.
So the audio quality is not brilliant, but it's an interview between Rogier and Almeen. And she says, I'm not ready for the tablets of fire. And this brings up another scenario altogether. And she says, if it is something that you've considered in your life, if it's something that you plan for, then it is yours to take and keep. If it's yours to take because it's not going to give you a bunch of stuff to practice at home, it's triggers that go on. If I pull the right trigger, there's just this effortless flood that says, of course, there is no other way that it can be. So she knows that's the highest truth at that point. She says, so please feel comfortable if your mind cannot actually keep up with what is going on. And she actually goes into some detail here about it's an opening message for the Tablets of Fire event. So let's listen to that.
Yes.
Have you got something to...
Paul, that effortlessness that you've just talked about there, I just remembered this principle of High Magic 137. And she talks about it isn't something that you do. It is the natural state of an advanced expression of life. It effortlessly flows through you to affect your environment miraculously. And,
yes.
And that effortlessness
That's
has
it.
really spoken to me over these last couple of weeks. Sometimes I think that old habit of having to work hard and, wipe the sweat off the brow, that is not necessary.
It's all falling away. And we're seeing those old, as Jack is describing, I
Yes.
think he's describing, I hope so, but the Red Sea crashing behind you,
Yes.
but you still got your hope and your faith of moving forward. And we were saying pre-show as well how things are so exciting. We wake up 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning and there's this brand new idea. We're so excited, we've got to go and do it. I mean, today we put a whole new brand platform into this country on the performing arts, yet again. And the people around us are going, okay, let's do this.
Wow.
Isn't that just
But look
incredible?
at that effortless manifestation.
And it was absolutely effortless
Yes.
because it was needed at this moment in terms of part of the setup. It's like this idea comes, and Nick and I went into the one lady that started to work with us here, and we said, if we can think it, it's done. It's just a matter of putting it into action,
Yes.
and then we just follow where we need to go.
And it seems to take on a life of its own. And all the input, I'm not saying that, you sit on your butt and, you conjure it out of a hat. But those old habits and paradigms of thinking that, you've got to sort of walk through fire to, get to your point A, and you've got to have, tussle with
That's
Angel
on.
Gabriel. No.
Not at all.
No,
it's just
not-
like you are fully supported.
Yes.
You've had the idea, bring it in, boom, it's done. And it's just a matter of time and effort and energy, and there we go. So isn't that incredible?
Yeah, those are the kind of illusions that perhaps we need to disperse with.
Disperse with and let go. The fear of not being able
Absolutely.
to, or
Of
not
not-
succeeding.
Of not
or
being enough.
there we
Never
go.
being
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Which I think has
That's a
plagued
big
mankind.
thing. And we were talking earlier about the South African condition and some of the Facebook things that are going on. So we'll bring that up towards the end of the show because we need to do our other stuff now.
Yes.
Our ceremony. So we're going to work it. But let's listen to this when Almi talks about the triggers that we're not ready yet. I just find her way of saying it is just, there's no agenda in any of it. It's just, this is where we're at. Be where you are.
She has great clarity,
Really
and you don't have to go anywhere. You simply just have to remain here.
In the eye of the storm.
Absolutely.
No, we weren't on the eye of the storm with a tornado. We were on the edge of it, that's for sure.
We were
and I was
definitely
thinking I should be in the middle here because we wouldn't be so wrecked as it was. But anyway, that's another one. Okay, here we are with Almeen talking about the triggers are not ready yet. So be where you're at.
Something that stood out to me today is that a student who was going to participate in the Tablets of Fire decided to cancel because she said she felt like she was still working through these resurrection phases and just wasn't ready for the revelations of the Tablets of Fire. And I was wondering what you made of that, or if you care to comment.
Yes, I'd be happy to. There's no secret about the fact that you are in extremely advanced mysticism, spiritual concepts, metaphysics. It's beyond anything that has been taught on earth. But here is the thing. When you are in the stages of resurrection, you are still in linear time. The reason why is explained in the Tablets of Fire, and I will explain that during the sections when I give you those translations. But you are still in linear time. In linear time, everything goes step by step by step by step. Okay, you have to first learn this before you can do that, etc. However, when you are in the white light reality, it's completely different. It's completely different. It's like nothing I have ever experienced before. I had to sit down yesterday with my family and for half an hour explain to them the hardship of trying to do basic communications, because I have very heavily relied on a high IQ to do things such as figure out math problems, organize material into steps, into clarification, into synopsis, etc. I have been very good at that, so I became extremely dependent on it. It's gone. And the intuitive feeling, it's not even there anymore. The mind, I can hardly remember what day it is. In fact, I don't. So I cannot remember what somebody told me perhaps this morning. If the material isn't relevant to me, it doesn't even go in. So all of a sudden, things that a high IQ would have been able to figure out, I don't even know what they're saying. It's like Greek to me. So I had to sit down, and for many days I've been asking, what is, quote, wrong, What is the matter? It's not a cognitive level of life to be in. The reason is it isn't anyway structured, because structure creates time. And this is timelessness, and it's boundlessness. So there's no boundary and there's no structure. That is the only way mind functions. And that creates linear progression. You are getting ready to move into the white light reality. But you cannot move into the white light reality without at least embracing the concept that this is a different way of learning and it's a different way of knowing. In fact, you know what? I wouldn't even call it learning, because it's more like a triggering. It's as if you know everything, but you are just not accessing a lot of it until I come along and provide you with a trigger. And I completely get this, but I don't know how. So please don't ask me to explain, because there's no way I can explain. You get even what somebody's next going to say. You immediately get what you need to from the past, even though you've forgotten virtually everything. not through memory, but just because it's there, immediately inside you. Your whole body knows what it needs to know when you know it. So, beloved ones, you need to please relax into this. This is a bicycle ride with training wheels. But you have to learn to ride the bike before the training wheels come off. Please trust that if this has been presented to you, if it is something you considered, if it is something you planned for, then it is yours to take. It's yours to take because it's not going to give you a bunch of stuff to practice at home and this. It's triggers. If I pull the right trigger, there's just this effortless flood that says, of course, this is not the way it can be. So please feel comfortable if your mind cannot keep up. I'm telling you, I can't read a book right now. Fortunately, I write them, I don't read them, but I cannot read a paragraph. And it has been a little irritating to my family because they say, please read this, and what do you think of that? And I try and read it because I want to support them, but I can't make, it's like reading Greek. And then what do I make of it? I have no opinion because I don't even know what it said. So if you feel inadequate, to cognitively go forward, please don't. This is not a cognitive level of existence. There are no boundaries and there is no structure. What is time? Time is the movement of awareness between the boundary of space, the boundaries of space. Time is the movement of awareness between the boundaries of space. The boundaries are made by expectations of how time should pass, by belief systems of what you're ready, what you're capable. It will create time. People that are steeped in belief systems because they are full of church dogma and all of that, time passes very quickly for them because they have more strictures that bounces the movement of awareness back and forth. It moves a lot quicker from one side to the other. It's a contracted space. Practice being okay with not cognitively understanding. These are very, very advanced concepts, but your mind, if it doesn't grasp it, if it's not your trigger, just let it go. If it's your trigger, there'll be of course. You're not even surprised. It's like it was there all along. So that is my answer.
Something that stood out to me today is that a student who was going to participate in the Tablets of Fire decided to
And there was the mystic and seer Almeen talking about the triggers of our lives and made absolute sense, Diana. Incredible the way she's so in the moment, doesn't hide anything, no agenda, just says she can't even read a book. I'm like that. I can't focus on something for more than 10 seconds and I've lost interest in it already.
It's almost moronic.
Yeah.
But she's always had this amazing ability to speak simply and clearly. And so perhaps her mind, has been dipped into awareness. And, maybe our mind can benefit by our awareness because I'm sure the mind would also need an opportunity to rest.
I think so. But we're going to go into the healing ceremony now. Wonderful. With meditation.
Wonderful.
So just the last bit to add to our theme tonight before we go into that. Facebook connection through to Almeen Dari brought this up, that Almeen talks about how we are harboring illusion like a familiar friend. And she says, my beloved ones, when I prepare your healing oil, please be aware that it is counterproductive to keep speaking about the health problem as though you still have it. This affirms it back into existence. Even talking about a past illness keeps its effect on the present in place. And I know there's quite a few of the Almeen healers, Belvaspita masters around the world are deadly ill at this moment in time as they're just trying to process this whole whole process in there. She says, please don't allow your illness to define you by verbally affirming it. She gives an example that her daughter has hardly ever been sick, but she recently said to a sick friend, I wish I can take the sickness for you. And she did immediately and was ill for the following few days. Almin says we should please remember you have become powerful beings and the environment responds to your words. So careful what you ask for.
Yes.
That's still valid, obviously. She says it is your duty to be well. You are the archetype and affect many with your life. You are the overcomer of illusion and don't harbor it like a familiar friend.
And it's the attachment to that illusion that we do not want to let go of. Sometimes the illusion has burnt out, but we are still attached
It creates
to
a
the
tribal
illusion.
process of connection with people
and belonging.
Something really needs to be.
Yes.
I've been seeing that in myself.
Yes.
You know. Right, time for our sacred ceremony, Diane. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for doing this. I think everyone has been looking forward to it. So just for our listeners, Diane has prepared us about a 15-minute meditation ceremony. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast, it won't be live, but it'll be just as beautiful. It is there for everybody. And then we're going to play some music from Almin. And the bit of music we'll play after that is the clearing of subliminal programs, the Hajika brainwave meditation. Yes. And then we'll just play the short track of Belvaspatar, healing music of the angels. And so it's about half an hour long, everyone. So please sit back, rest, close your eyes. We will be opening and closing with Belvaspatar sigils and just letting that flow through. So, Nico, thank you. Whenever you're ready, we are ready. And we'll see you all in a little while and changed.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Good evening to all our listeners out there, and good evening to Paul and Nick. Tonight is the culmination of our 16 wheels of hope, creating a field of hope. So tonight we are going to be in meditation, wherein a slight intention on the first 8 principles of hope will be focused on. Please, in your own time, embrace the last 8 principles. And in the weeks that follow this, guidance on the tending of our field of hope will be forthcoming, and focus on the fragrance alchemy for the field of hope will also be discussed. We will begin the session now by opening and closing with the sigils of praise, love, and gratitude. And as each principle is illuminated, the corresponding wheel will be moved up through the body, starting at the feet. Do not be concerned if you do not have them handy. We will embrace them and draw them in the studio. Silence your mind now. In fact, leave it at the door, along with any memories, any desires, those stories that keep reappearing, and any woundings. Let's leave them at the door. Please come in and make yourself very comfortable. Settle in. Take a few deep breaths, and very simply, very easily, just allow your being to be uncovered. Just become still and feel the presence enveloping us. Feel that eternal being which has no form, no shape, no beginning and no end. Let the heart open and expand. As it becomes all-inclusive, let us sail on the winds now of infinite intent. The field of hope is a field of integrated oneness, and this field is often referred to as the temple of life. Surrender to these principles. No effort is required. No thinking is required. There is no agenda here. There is no attachment to outcome. we will draw and embrace the sigils of praise, and I draw it now, of love and gratitude. And let us begin. We illuminate principle number 1. And that is creating a field of potential through envisaged achievement. Through envisaged achievement. Knowing that we are beings as vast as the cosmos, that there is no limitation. Recognize the wonder of the moment and celebrate our uniqueness. Let us do this very lightly. Let us see in some area of our lives, and don't obsess about this. Just see some area of our lives that we perhaps limit. Just see this as clouds that pass across the canvas of the sky. We uncover again principle number 2, which is relying on effortless genius to silence doubts about capabilities. As we let our stories go and let perceived woundings go, in this space, in this field, there are no stories. There are no memories. We are free. Free to allow, free to create. As we stay only in the now and only in the here, the ghosts of the past simply dissolve. Let us allow our willingness to be amazed open us, and in all our beauty see our being who was never born and who never dies. Principle number 3. Avoiding comparisons as a measure of excellence. There is only the self. Thus comparisons are futile. Comparison and competition is of the mind, which wants to excel, which wants to shine while others decline. This is an illusion, for the self is always whole. The self is always whole. Very slightly, look for a moment where we compare, and let us release it. Let us stay with the self, where the personality, where the person is not. Let it play in the field, but do not identify with this persona. Number 4, relishing creativity's contribution to everyday activities. Without belief systems, without assumptions and conclusions that duality impose on us, what happens? We become light. unburdened, free to discover the magic of the mundane. We discover the adventure of the moment. This is not something that we learn. This is experiential. We experience this, and thus it becomes part of our knowing, although in truth we have always known this. And now the principle of allowing beauty to fire the imagination is illuminated. Number 5. Duality is not a curse. Often it is a tool to allow us to perceive the beauty and vastness of our being. We see the perfection, the flawlessness of creation. Da Vinci saw the angel in the marble before he began the sculpture. So too, we can see the artwork of our being. Principle number 6. Hope as joyous anticipation of unspecified and surprising outcomes. As the wholeness of our being is perceived, unspecified joy and belief in life is released, flooding boundlessness into the field of awareness. And then quite naturally, principle number 7 is highlighted. The patient creation of your life as an unfolding work of art. Let us relinquish the hold of time. All is unfolded in the perfect season. There is no need to ask, what next? By appreciating and being aware of all that is in the moment, that is self-fulfilling. And so, with a slight intention, look to any area of our lives where impatience might have clouded our perception. Let us let go of arrogance, demanding that we know the time and the place. And let us surrender to the realization that all is happening as it should. Do not ruminate on this. Let it simply pass by naturally. And number 8, opening the portals of miraculous life through the silent mind and the expectant heart. So long as the mind continues to impose its presence, giving its penny's worth, rationalizing, justifying, this noise prevents the whispers of the immaculate being from being heard. Now once again, do not give energy to any thought. Remember, those thoughts cannot survive without input. Let them come and let them go. The Self, the immaculate being, does not come and go. It observes the coming and it observes the going, without itself being observed. Similarly, the emotions, that needy heart, closes down the vaster perspective which allows us to live the miraculous life beyond duality. So let us surrender in trust at the benevolence of life. In recognizing and uncovering this field, we begin to see life reverently, in wonderment at the beauty of the oneness of life. In this field, even the mind and the body may be dipped in awareness and be seamlessly integrated into divine expression. We, and I say we, but I would be equally as acceptable. We operate from an eternal, unchangeable core, and this field of hope surrounds and illuminates the awareness of our being. Our being, which is not bound by time and space. Our being, the I Am, is boundless. So for the next few minutes, just rest in this boundlessness. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes. And knowing that the being is not changed by this, it is not affected, the I Am remains.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by, when hope was high and life worth living. I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiving. And I was young and unafraid. Dreams were made and used and wasted. There was no ransom to be paid, no song unsung, no wine untasted. But the tigers come at night, with their voices soft as thunder, as they tear your hope apart, as they tear your dreams to shame. She slept a summer by my side. She filled my days with endless wonder. She took my childhood in her stride, but she was gone when autumn came. And still I dream she'll come to me. We will spend the years together, but there are dreams that cannot be, yeah. There are storms we cannot weather. I had a dream my life would be so different from this hell I'm living, so different now than what it seemed. Now life has killed the dream I dreamed.
You've been listening to Radio Belvaspita, South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Belvaspita or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@belvaspita.co.za or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal ascension qualities of love, praise, gratitude and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.